Welcome to GameFellas, the Retro to Modern Gaming Podcast, Episode 2. Tonight with me, I have my brothers from my British mother, Sorren and Justin Day, from across the pond. Say hi, fellas.
Hi, fellas.
Hi, guys.
And Justin and Sorren, I met them in California. That's how the genesis of this whole thing sort of started. And Justin couldn't make it on the last episode, but he's here tonight with us, thankfully. So we're kind of doing our little British side of things tonight. So let's get started, shall we? Let's start with what we've been playing lately. Why don't you lead us off, Justin?
Yeah, I'd love to lead us off here. So I always wonder if this is actually slightly like an embarrassing admission that this is the type of game that I enjoy playing. This is maybe something that is marketed to younger people. I don't know. We'll soon find out. So I've actually been playing Yoshi's Crafted World on the Nintendo Switch, and I have a real guilty pleasure for Nintendo first-party platforming games. Always have, always will do. Truth is, this is the first of the kind of the Yoshi's games that I've played probably for some years. Really, I didn't get into Yoshi's Woolly World and things like that.
Which one is this again? What's the premise behind this Yoshi game?
So the premise behind this, it couldn't be any more Nintendo, really. The usual kind of thing. Bowser Jr. and Kamek have stolen the gems from the wonderful Yoshi Island. They've smashed them across the world. They need to go and get these little gems, go through all sorts of platforming worlds to go and collect those, because if you have those, they can either protect Yoshi's Island or grant you your greatest wish. That is the premise of the game. Like I said, very, very childlike, but very brilliant.
Okay. What's the gameplay like?
So actually very, very cool. So because they've done it in like a crafted style, it's very much like Little Big Planet. So it's almost like they've had a kind of a cutting board, different kind of materials. Everything's built from different things like cardboard or wool or plastic or little bits of wood, and it really feels like they've put the world together very much in that way. It's built on a 2D plane, but there's kind of that 2.5D element to it as well. But what's great about it is, for me, it's something where you can just let yourself go. Classic platform game. You can get from left to right. There's not a great deal of challenge in that, but the challenge really comes from all of the extra things you have to do to go back through the levels, to collect the different coins, to collect the different Poochie Pup runs and all that. I do play adult games as well. Overly conscious of this, but just for a kind of like a brain melt, which I've found I kind of really, really love as I've got older. It is a fantastic game, and it does have a real kind of a challenge to it. As well as just being something that you can just kind of bop through quite quickly. So yeah.
So be honest with me. Did you buy this game for yourself or for your kids? How many kids have you got, Justin?
I've got 2.
You have 2 kids. So
yeah.
So did you buy it for them or for you?
So I've told everyone around me that I've of course bought it for them, but I absolutely bought it for me. So yeah, my daughter doesn't have a great interest in video games, much to my utter shame. But my son would die happy if he could spend the rest of his life playing Rocket League. As long as he's playing that,
Rocket League, yeah.
Me and him will play that as a team. That's his game. So yeah, no, I'm cool with that. Exactly what you'd expect from a Nintendo game. Great effort. Really, really enjoying it. Gone through the run once, about 10 hours to complete the game, and now it's going back through and kind of collecting all the bits and pieces, trying to 100% it. So yeah. Great stuff. Interesting.
What else? Anything else you've been playing?
Yeah, just before that, a completely different take on games. It's not like another 2D platformer or a childish game. I'm a bit as Sorren said, a bit late to the party on this one, but I picked up Dead Cells. So I was playing
also on the Switch.
Well, it was also on the Switch. Yeah. Really good port. I know it was on other consoles first. Loved the game. Got into it really deeply. Has, for me, a major flaw, which is slightly problematic, which actually turned me off it so bad that I kind of moved away from it. Really, really good. Really, really great. But I think the difficulty curve as you kind of get from going through the multiple runs in normal mode to I think it's the boss stem cell mode. So once you complete the run and get the boss the first time, you can kind of up the difficulty. Maybe I just suck at games. Let's just get it out there. But I found the difficulty curve just didn't give me a chance. I was getting absolutely pwned. So yeah, played that, loved it, but then the difficulty went up too quick, and I was like, "Argh." So I put it down.
Dead Cells is a pixel platformer, old school style game, it looks like.
That's right, yeah, very sort of pixel platformer based, but it's a roguelike game, so it's based on runs, based on collectibles, got a real kind of Binding of Isaac type feel to it from that perspective. Nice little sub-story about, you kind of learn every time you go through a run exactly what's happening. There's a kind of a disease or something that's happened to all these kind of guys, and we don't want to ruin it for anyone that hasn't played it, but yeah, for me, one or two things. I either absolutely suck at games, or the difficulty curve just ramped real hard, real fast. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me anymore. Which is why I then went to Yoshi.
Yeah, right. So you didn't actually finish Dead Cells then?
Well, I suppose in theory you can argue that it's one of those games you kind of don't finish. It's almost like a Toe Jam now. You kind of, if you consider getting to level 25 and building your spaceship a finish, then yes. If you consider the fact that you go through and do multiple things multiple times, then no. Yeah.
Did you ever play a game called Rogue Legacy? Have you ever heard of that game?
Yes.
Okay. Is it kind of like that? This similar kind of vein?
It's very similar to Rogue Legacy, but in a pixelated way. Yeah, Rogue Legacy, real cool.
Okay. Okay, cool. Anything else, or is that about it?
I think a kind of a sprinkling of games for me. I tend to try and pick up a game and go with it and sort of give it the time it deserves. That's a far cry from where I used to be. Several years ago, I'd pick up a game, I'd play it for half an hour, and then I'd pick up another game and play it for half an hour. And so I do kind of mix that up. But I'm lucky enough to have my main emulator built into an arcade cabinet, so I can kind of pick up what I want when I want. And so for me, I'll always dart back to some of my arcade favorites. So I'll go back to I'm a big retro 80s fanboy. The 80s arcade was kind of like a second home to me, and given half a chance, I'd be back there in a flash. So for me, the holy trinity is the Taito 3, which would be Bubble Bobble, Rainbow Islands, and the New Zealand story. So any chance?
New Zealand story.
The New Zealand story, yeah.
Okay, I get it. What is that? I've heard of it, but
so
is that a British thing? Because I don't remember the game in the States at all.
No, well, I would have to call upon the fact checker to see if that got itself over to the US.
New Zealand story.
The New Zealand story by Taito, I think it's like 1987, 1988. So the premise is very, classic kind of Japanese 1980s premise. So a walrus has kidnapped all of the kiwis. It's based in New Zealand, obviously. All of the kiwis from a zoo, except one which got away, which has to then go and get all of its mates in a platform style and return them to their former freedom and glory. It's a real fun game. It's a perfect game. It's straight off of that kind of Taito line of the 80s as well. That's kind of where it's at. It's a little platform game, your classic, do 2 or 3 levels, hit a boss, do 2 or 3 levels, hit a boss. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I'm not familiar with I didn't play much in the arcades as a kid, honestly, but
it's 1988 and the developer was Taito.
Yeah, Taito, yeah.
Manchester, so
Yep.
All right. Okay, cool. All right, cool. I guess Sorren, what have you been playing, man?
Hello. So I suppose the things I've most recently played. Justin was involved with this as well. So actually, not too long ago, it was my birthday, and part of what I wanted to do for that was I didn't really fancy doing anything, big like going out and that. I just kind of fancied staying in, playing some games, and kind of doing what we did as kids, which is just kind of hang out and play games. But I tried to kind of spice it up a bit and make it interesting. So I picked a load of games and just a load of kind of challenges to do on those games, and turned it into like a randomizer, and we just press a button, pick, and play whatever it tells us to play. So we would kind of yeah, we were literally doing things like, one go on Pac-Man and highest score wins. Things like that. So we were playing a lot of the kind of old games. What else did we play? We did, was it like one go on Altered Beast from the Mega Drive / Genesis? We were doing like fastest lap times on Excite Bike and things like that. So a lot of the things I was using were the NES Online on the Switch, and then also things like the Sega Mega Drive Genesis collection, those kind of packages.
So the Genesis Mega Drive collection has online co-op on some of the games?
No, I think that does, but we were both at Justin's house. So,
oh, okay, all right, I see.
Yeah, we were just doing couch co-op. But yeah, no, I think that does actually have online play. So,
yeah, I was curious about that because that would be super cool, man. That would be worth buying, and even though I've got the originals, be able to play them online with friends. That would look that up, Nate. See if I'm curious about that. If the Genesis Classics collection is playable online.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. The other one that we played, so this one is kind of an interesting one, which is big because I'm not really a big sports person, but I've quite got into the latest FIFA game. So if you're familiar with English football, yeah. So exactly, like for me and football or soccer, as you guys call it, exactly the same. Like I kind of follow the World Cup, but that's about it. I'm not, I don't follow football at all. But the FIFA games, so this latest one that they put on the Switch, it's got this mode, I think it's just like a set of rules called like the party mode. And you can turn on these different settings that they add to the fun of the game. Like it actually then makes it so it's not like normal football. So you can turn on things like random teams. So you have to pick a random team. So it's, you can't just go and pick the best teams in the game. You just press a button. It gives you a selection of teams to pick from, and you've kind of got to go with one of them. You can do things like you can turn the ref off. So there's no fouls. There's no, you don't get yellow and red cards. You don't get offside. Like you can just hack people and get the ball. There's loads of fun, loads of just really kind of kooky, fun things that you don't get in the actual sport.
Which FIFA game is this? An EA FIFA game, or is this some other? So it is from. Is it like a mainline FIFA game like you get on PS4 or Xbox or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's the main EA FIFA 19. I'm not 100% sure about this, but I believe they said in an interview that I think a lot of these party mode settings are actually exclusive to the Switch version. The other versions have what they call, it's like the Become a Champion mode or something like that, but it's like a story mode where you're following the career of this young footballer, and they've got cutscenes and actors to come in and do, it's like a full production. But it was too much to put on the Switch card, as well as the rest of the game. So to kind of, so that we didn't feel like we'd missed out on half the game's content, they said like, we've done this kind of little party mode for you. So, because that is kind of more what the Switch is aimed at.
Right,
so
that makes sense.
Party mode and couch co-op and getting your friends together. So yeah, exactly. It made sense to put these kind of ridiculous modes in there.
Yeah, I could see a group of people with the, and then in a commercial, like they had the original Switch commercials they had a lot where they showed people sitting in a circle with their Switches and they're all playing. I guess you could, I'm assuming you can do that with FIFA.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Okay. So,
right,
cool. So what else have you been playing other than boring soccer games?
Really quick, the Sonic collection isn't online. Just wanted to toss that. It's all. It is fully online.
It is? Okay.
Yes, for the Sonic collection for Switch, fully online.
Yeah, no, I thought it was, because I'm sure when we first got it, like, I'm pretty sure, Justin, you and I, didn't we try and do Toe Jam and Earl online? Like, because the original Toe Jam and Earl is on that collection.
Yeah. I think we tried that, and it just wasn't having any of it. And I don't know if it just wasn't working well, or was it just not present?
It was. I can't remember if it was the game not really handling it, or if it was your internet connection. Because your internet connection's a little bit iffy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say it was my internet connection. Because I think we tried it, and I think this was like a big thing. It's like, can you imagine playing the original Toe Jam and Earl for us,
Right?
But online, so we could play, and then it failed spectacularly because my internet is crap. So that's
dude,
that.
you live in the UK. You're supposed to have amazing internet, man.
Oh! Don't, spoiler alert! That is coming later in the podcast.
Right. Okay. All right. I won't get us off track here. Okay. So anything else? Anything else, Sorren?
Not really. I mean, there's like one or two things that I've kind of briefly started and looked at, but I'm saving them until I've played them a bit more, and then I may bring them up in future episodes. But yeah, no, that's mostly what I've been doing recently.
Okay. Cool. And then we'll move on to me. So the only thing I played in the last week, because I've been extremely busy, but I did sit down a few nights and pick this up again, was this game called Transport Tycoon that was released in 1994 for DOS. And I think it was ported to PlayStation and Saturn and a couple other things later on. But, it's part of the Tycoon series. I think Railroad Tycoon preceded it, and the roller coaster games came after. So this was kind of in between. Let's see. It was a real-time simulation game where you run a company, and you build transportation systems with either you build, trains, cars, ships, planes, all that kind of stuff. It's a super complex game. It's like the amount of options you have is crazy. You can basically build and manipulate, control every vehicle individually if you want. That's how crazy it gets. But the cool thing is this game was in 2004 was completely redone open source. And they created, I guess fans basically created, it's called Open Transport Tycoon Deluxe. And it's free. You can get it on their website. And it's I believe it's one of the most actively developed games there is, really, like for a free game that fans are working on. And they're still working on it to this day. It's pretty amazing. The new one, which is the one I've been playing, basically allows mods. So, and they're all built into the game. So you open up the mod button and you select what you want. Like say you want the surface of the game to look like Mars or something. They got a mod for that. It makes all the buildings look like, space age buildings and the planes are spaceships and, stuff like that. So it's really cool. It's a really complex, interesting simulation game. I haven't been into simulation games in years, but a friend of mine is doing a video, one of those collaborative videos, and he wanted to do a video with people that he wanted people to talk about their favorite games of summertime, like when you were a kid or whatever, what games you played during the summer. And this was one of those games for me, where, a lazy summer day, I'd put on Transport Tycoon probably in the mid 90s and just create a big empire of, planes, trains, and automobiles. Very cool. Very cool game. It also has online play with like up to 255 players now, I think. You can all compete against each other in the same map. The maps you can make are just absolutely, they're so massive that it's ridiculous. Like you can go into the game and there's all these servers up you can visit, and you can go into other people's games and look at their worlds they've created and just watch if you want, Very cool. So that's what I've been messing around with lately. Have either of you heard of that game or no?
So I hadn't heard of that one, but I'm familiar with like the kind of roller coaster tycoon games, right, things like that. So I can kind of imagine what it looks like as well. But that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. A lot of fun. Like I said, it's a huge learning curve. I'm watching a series of tutorial videos. There's like 50 of them, and I'm up to like I think video 6 or something. It's like, and there's a British guy who's doing them. So
nice.
Yeah. So I figured, I don't know, you Brits seem like you're into these type of games a lot too. I think a lot of the people that work on this game are from the UK, honestly, and probably from parts of Europe. But it's really cool. So that's been a lot of fun. And so that's what I've been playing. So, yes. All right. We can wrap up our section here on what we've been playing, and we can move on to our topics. And our first topic is going to be games that help define era changes in video games. So super influential games, in other words. So why don't you start off, Sorren, and give us some examples.
Okay, so I have got a game as an example for this, but I also slightly stretched the rules of this topic, and I've also gone for.
You did that last time with Skyrim too.
I did, yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
So I've gone with there's a game that I think is quite era changing and quite industry defining, and I've gone with also like a couple of bits of technology, which I can't necessarily pinpoint when what was the first game to really utilize this technology. But I mean, you'll know what I'm talking about obviously when I go on about it. So I'll start with the game. So for me, the game is Minecraft. Now I don't really play that anymore. I do have it still. I've got it on PC, and I did pick up the Switch version. And I played it like years ago when I was really into it. I couldn't even tell you what update that was at or anything, but it wasn't really like anything I'd played before. Like, even though we'd had a lot of open world sandboxy games, we'd had games where you could be really creative, and they basically just gave you the tools to kind of make what you want. But somehow Minecraft, they managed to kind of just put it all together in this really nice package where the best way I can kind of describe it is it's like that, somebody gave you a massive box of Lego, like an infinite box of Lego, where the only limitation is your imagination. It's like, imagine if you being a kid and you were given that, like you could make whatever you want. Like you use the Lego bricks and like what you've got there to kind of build anything, do anything. And that's kind of why I think it's been kind of industry changing, is that it has spawned so much more than just looking at it as a game. So, there are people that will create things in that purely from an artistic viewpoint. Like they want to make these big sculptures, or they want to, completely build and map out all of Middle Earth from Lord of the Rings. Like I've seen there's some guys on a forum that have done that. There's people that use the tools in the game, so all the kind of redstone, what would you call it? Where you're essentially building technology because you're using redstone.
Yeah, I was going to say people have built working computers inside of Minecraft, right? There was someone who built an NES emulator inside of Minecraft, which just kind of blew my mind. I was like, how is that even possible?
Exactly.
What year did Minecraft come out anyway? Can you look that up, Nate? I'm curious, because Terraria is a similar game except in 2D, and I feel like that game has had a similar effect, although maybe in the 2D realm more than the 3D. So I'm curious which one came out first. Either
May
Terraria.
17th, 2009.
Okay, and what year did Terraria came out? I think in 2011.
2011. So yeah,
okay.
Minecraft.
All right. So Minecraft preceded it. Okay, so yeah, all right. So you got a good point, and yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples that maybe Minecraft has influenced, other game examples. Although I know that the whole sandbox building whatever you can think of mentality, it definitely. But is there a lot of clones? Is there a lot of clones of Minecraft, or is Minecraft kind of a thing? Is there? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of kind of slightly knockoff clones that they're basically trying to do exactly what Minecraft has done, and
okay.
I mean that's just not going to take off because people love Minecraft. But you can see there are games that have definitely been influenced by it. So a couple of games, like there's one, and then its sequel is coming out soon, I think, is Dragon Quest Builders. So I played that on the Switch, and that's basically a Dragon Quest RPG game, but based around even the story in the RPG is that the world has been kind of ripped apart, and nobody even knows the concept of being able to create things. So they're just wandering around aimlessly, and you as the hero you've got this big hammer and you have the ability to use your imagination and create things. So you go on little quests and it's like, right, you need to build a house for this person. They don't know how to build a house. And you then have to go and like cut down the trees and make the timber. And you're essentially doing the same kind of stuff you would do in Minecraft. But there's another part of the game that's all based around RPG elements and kind of, going and adventuring and leveling up and fighting bosses and doing all things like that. So, and that's just one example. But there are definitely a lot of games that have been inspired by the success of what Minecraft has done.
And all those games could be built in Minecraft too, probably.
Yeah.
So Sorren, I think you're sort of saying that the era-defining change there is the open sandbox world and the kind of endless possibility, right?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say that necessarily was brought to the table by Minecraft, because I think there's definitely stuff that existed before it. But whatever Minecraft, whatever those guys, I think it's Mojang that make it, like whatever they did, they just managed to hit everything perfectly.
Yeah.
It took off, and they've produced something that is amazing, but they've also managed to somehow create a community and like a fan base that are just as creative and excitable as they are to make new stuff and really test the boundaries of this game. And I don't think that happened before Minecraft.
No, and I think, for me, that there's, and I know me and you have spoken about it, the era-defining change for me for something like Minecraft as well is that the concept of gamification is now being adopted by schools, and it's also being adopted by parents. So when you've had parents that are really quite, naturally critical of video games, and video games just consume time and they're just mindless, whatever they may be, I think Minecraft, love it or hate it. I mean, I haven't played Minecraft. It does not appeal to me. That's not my thing. But the ability to put something like that, a toolbox in the hands of a child, in the hands of someone who can learn, who can be creative, and it be fun, that to me is a massive era-defining change. I don't think that's what Minecraft set out to do necessarily, and I'm sure that wasn't their MO, but it absolutely has happened, and it is happening. And so that, for me, is what I would consider more the era-defining change of Minecraft, what it has opened up. It wouldn't look out of place to walk into a school and see kids, walking around with creepers or whatever the hell they're called. I don't know. I don't play it, and making their little bits and pieces in their castles. And, it's like you say, if you can build a NES emulator within there, if the possibilities are endless, I mean, that's just great stuff. So
a really good point, Justin. I didn't even think about the educational value of Minecraft, which of course there is lots of it. The only time I've played Minecraft, I played it once, and it was I was in Hawaii this past September with my wife's family, and her little cousin, who's about 10 years old, 11 years old maybe. He was playing Minecraft on PS4 inside the house at the family reunion, and so no one was playing with him, so I sat down, of course, and was like, hey man, let's play. So he handed me a controller. I didn't know what the hell I was doing because I've never played before, and it was nuts. But yeah, I can definitely see the value in that. That's a really good point. So maybe it's a genre defining game for the educational games, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
So a way that works exceptionally well is so I played a game years ago, which unfortunately kind of fizzled out and isn't as popular anymore. But it's a game called DayZ, which is like a post-apocalyptic zombie survival.
Yep, I know it.
MMO type game. But it's set in Russia, and you are just dropped into a map. So like I think you can play it third person or first person, but you're essentially just dropped onto this map, like on the beach somewhere or whatever, and you've just got to go. You've got to go and find supplies. You've got to worry about your food and your water intake. You've got to worry about other players or zombies killing you. So you're desperately like hunting for weapons and things like that. And one of the things you can get in that is you get a compass. You can find a compass and you can find a map of this area, which is massive. But if you're just playing on like the normal servers, it doesn't give you like, you know, you don't get the map and then suddenly it's like, oh, here is where you are on the map. It's like, no, you now have a map of this entire area and you've got a compass, so you know what north, south, east and west is, you know what the whole area looks like, and you know what you can see. And before I knew it, I was like actually starting to learn how to like map, you know, read maps like properly and work out like, okay, well, like I know that that town is there and I know that that mountain is there, and I looked at the map and okay, so I can kind of triangulate where I am and I can work that out. And I was doing that without, you know, I was kind of learning that skill without even realizing that I was. So that's where I think, you know, things like Minecraft, like you introduce that into schools, which I think they're already doing in some places in England.
Yeah, I think they are, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you introduce that and suddenly the kids are playing something that they're really enjoying and they're not even realizing that they're picking up these pretty good skills.
And they're being extremely creative too, you know. It's a great, I mean, you could go to art class or you can go to Minecraft class, you know, and you can create the art within the game, which is, very cool. That's a very, very cool concept. That's cool. That's good, Sorren. I think that's appropriate, you know, pretty interesting. What about you, Justin? What are your ideas about genre defining games?
So I've got two that I definitely need to talk about. One, I've got the first one is one that is near and dear to my heart, and this is one that Sorren knows, and you know, I think a theme that will become probably common, hopefully through our podcast, is that, you know, me and Sorren are brothers and we grew up together. So the majority of everything we've ever done, particularly around video games, involves each other. So, you know, in my working world, I come from a world of comms. I come from a world of tech. You know, the company I'm a part of is about tech and comms. So the world of the internet and private connectivity and those things that are probably boring to most people are basically my entire life. And I mean, they're still boring, but you know, at least for me, they are something that makes a living as well. So the actual, I'm not going to get to the game first. I'm going to try and build it up a little bit more exciting. The era-defining change is that of online gaming. So, you know, we are, I'm going to say lucky enough, and I'm always intrigued and interested to think about those, you know, it's not even kids anymore. It's people that are older than kids who maybe can't remember a world that didn't have the internet in it. You know, I remember back in England getting a free disc attached to PC Magazine or PC Gamer or whatever it might be, which was a subscription to CompuServe or AOL, and you could use your 28K modem or whatever you had to get online, and everything would take forever to download, and it would be horrible, and.
It's great that you had America Online even in the UK.
Yeah. Well, we used to call it America Offline, which I don't know if that was a joke shared in America as well. But you know, for us, the AOL servers were absolutely horrendous. But what was interesting about you know, online gaming and the internet and the power of the internet is, you know, as you'd expect, the likes of your Segas and your Nintendos and these other companies, they knew that this behemoth was coming. They knew the power of the internet. They knew the concept of, hey, online gaming, what if people could play and be in different places? And of course, the first place that you started to see this really, I suppose, was more PCs, but I'm talking about console online gaming. And for us, there was a very specific game that changed everything. So for those who are maybe not quite as au fait with everything that's going on underneath the bonnet, you know, when you go on the internet, you kind of take everything for granted. I know what's going on underneath there, and it is ugly. And back in the 90s, it was even uglier. So, you know, I'd like you to consider, just visualize trying to play the biggest MMORPG over a 28K modem line on AOL. Just think about that for a second. Like, absolutely horrid. So trying to play any of these games with any kind of, you know, requirement, particularly where games are, you know, they're not just real time, they're, you know, they're immediate time. There's no ability for any kind of latency at all. So if you needed to do anything too much across dial-up, it just wasn't going to work. But then something changed it all. So in America, you had the last dying remnants of the Sega hardware, which was the Dreamcast, of course, and the Dreamcast had behind it something called SegaNet. And SegaNet was effectively your online service for the Dreamcast, God rest its soul. But in the UK and in Europe, we had something called Dream Arena. Now, Dream Arena, if you subscribe to it, and Sorren will remember this, and just imagine this as a child growing up as well. If you subscribed to Dream Arena, Sega of Europe sent you a free copy of a game that would change the summer of the year 2000 and online gaming forever. That game was ChuChu Rocket. Are you familiar with ChuChu Rocket, Zack?
Yes, I am.
It is one of the finest games I can ever remember playing.
I thought you were going to say Phantasy Star Online for a minute.
No, right. So Phantasy Star Online followed up real quick, and another game changer. And it's between those two, but for us, the one that came first, and because it was free with the European subscription of Dream Arena, was ChuChu Rocket. ChuChu Rocket literally destroyed the summer of 2000 because we were playing people that weren't in our bedrooms. This blew our mind. You could talk to people. You got the starts of things that you get today. You got the starts of people using terms like noob. You got the starts of people.
There it is.
Sorren has an original copy of ChuChu Rocket.
Within reach.
There it is. Just there, because he knew I was going to talk about ChuChu Rocket. And, you know, from a boring technical perspective, the game itself doesn't require much. You know, it's a simple puzzle game. Yeah, you're effectively just pressing left, up, down, and right to place tiles, to guide mice to a rocket, to avoid the cats, but you're also trying to affect the gameplay of other players. And there was some pretty intelligent stuff that Sega did in that the SegaNet and what was Dream Arena, they didn't expose to the public internet. So whilst you were using the internet to get there, it wasn't exposed. You had a quicker route to get direct to it, which reduced the latency just enough that even the 33K modem that came with the Dreamcast, there you go, fun fact, could cope with ChuChu Rocket. So ChuChu Rocket, I'd like you to think of that on one end of the scale, year 2000. It was actually released in 1999 in North America. And if you want to come forward 20 years, Google Stadia. 20 years, and look at what you've got. You've got one game that you ran on a 33K modem, and you've now got the future of gaming, which is effectively...
They're saying that Stadia will run 4K games, which I would like to see that to believe it, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I have a real big opinion on the success of Google Stadia because of what they're trying to run it on. I don't think the internet will be able to cope with it in a hurry. That's a whole nother topic. But my era-defining game is ChuChu Rocket.
I never would have guessed in a million years. You know, on that, around that same time, I wasn't gonna mention this game, but now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should. Which another online game that kind of helped define an era was Ultima Online. And that came out back in 98, I think, or 97, maybe. It was before ChuChu Rocket. It was PC, obviously, but the game is still around today. And it's that and EverQuest are like the original MMOs, basically. And I remember playing Ultima Online on a 28.8, or maybe it was a 56K modem at that point. I don't know. And you'd be walking to town, do all this stuff, and all of a sudden, it would zip all the way back, and nothing of what you just did actually happened because of the lag, what lag was like back then. So yeah, you're right. With ChuChu Rocket, low latency, simple gameplay made it playable. Ultima Online was hard to play in the early days because of the complexity of it. It was kind of ahead of its time, so I think your example was actually better because because it was more of a playable game at the time.
Well, I think it's because it's console gaming as well. And it did, and it was the whole thing. The game was free. The concept of being offered a free console game as well. That was just alien to us. That was bizarre. The fact that it worked, it introduced us to these new things. It was great. I think if I was saying online gaming, period. I think for us, I'm going to have to say it was Diablo. I remember playing Diablo online for the first time, the original Diablo, and again, just blew my mind to see another guy walking around independently that I was trying to reconcile in my head was another guy in the world controlling it. I was like, this is just crazy.
This is the second episode in a row we're talking about online, the original Diablo.
Doesn't take long.
Genre, that was a genre. That game basically started a genre of games. I'm sure there was examples before it. Maybe games like The Immortal were kind of like Diablo in a way, kind of before that. But Diablo was the one that really made that hack and slash genre just hugely popular and online. Obviously, now you have Diablo 3 still around, which is huge. You have the Torchlight series. You've got what's the other one that's huge? Nate, you play it all the time.
Is it Path of Exile? That's the
Path of Exile.
Yeah, a very big one. So.
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. So I guess we'll on that note, I'll get on to mine. Sometimes a game just comes along that I feel is a quantum leap forward ahead of everything else before it. And every once in a while this will happen. I saw I saw the Death Stranding trailer today. I don't know if you guys saw that, the new Kojima game with Norman Reedus in it. And I thought that looked pretty amazing. But the game that really, back in, I guess, 99, the game that blew me away when I walked into a store and saw it was Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast. Got to go back to Dreamcast again. But it's the first, as far as I know, Soul Calibur is the first console port that exceeded the arcade, I believe. The graphics are better. I believe the gameplay was a little better. It had more features, more options. It was just an overall better experience. And at that time, Dreamcast came out, a year or two earlier than the PlayStation 2. So it was the first, quote unquote, 128-bit system, whatever they want to call it. So yeah, and it's kind of biased for me. I played Soul Calibur for years and years and years, and I've played pretty much every game in the series since. But that first Soul Calibur is still, I felt like it was a genre defined, at least for fighting games for sure. But it kind of ushered us into the good 3D era. I consider the PlayStation Saturn era to be like the experimental stepchild era, where polygons were still super blocky and games were still clunky and they were still figuring it out. But once Soul Calibur came out with super smooth gameplay, amazing graphics and 3D environments, it was just like, wow, this game, it just blew me away. Maybe to another extent, another genre defining game would be Final Fantasy VII. I'm thinking for RPGs anyway. I don't think there was anything like it at that time when it came out. Just a game that expansive. How many discs did it come on? Three? Was it 3 discs? I mean,
definitely 3.
Just bonkers, man. With all these, I mean, there was CGI, CD-ROM CGI movie type games before it, but none that wove in and just this crazy interactive RPG story, and yeah, Final Fantasy VII for sure was to me anyway, was a genre defining game. I think every RPG since then has copied it in some way,
Oh, it was massive. I mean, Final Fantasy VII, I kind of, it's one of those games where I kind of feel like when I say how much I love that game, I kind of feel like I'm on the bandwagon, but I was there. I actually remember a conversation with my mum in the kitchen where I'd seen in a PlayStation magazine what was coming, Final Fantasy VII, and it was about, I reckon it was 12 to 14 months away. And I remember saying to her vividly, I wish there was a way to kind of get rid of that time so I could just have this game. And it did not disappoint. I mean, from everything, you got to think the kind of games that we used to love on the SNES, huge fan of The Secret of Mana, huge fan of the Zelda games. And that jump to not just the a decent 3D game, great musical score, FMV that we hadn't really seen, a story that you could buy into and believe, that actually played on emotions. That is, yeah, you're absolutely right. Genre defining, and yeah, blew me away.
Yeah, when you look at the difference between, say, I mean, Final Fantasy VI is a great game, but when you look at the like I said earlier, the quantum leap that Final Fantasy VII was, with the CGI movies and just the sheer size of the game, the 3D environments, and I know some of it was hand drawn in the back or whatever, where 3D models walking over a static image, but even so, it was so far beyond any RPGs that we had played up until that point. Just really pretty amazing. So. All right, cool.
Definitely.
Well, I think we. Oh, go ahead, Sorren.
I was just going to say, just it's amusing that both of you referenced the Dreamcast, because especially with Soul Calibur, I actually do remember a conversation with a friend at school, where we were talking about the Dreamcast coming out and Soul Calibur and that, and I remember this friend of mine saying, like we were getting excited about the fact that it was gonna, have like clothes that actually move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just
hair that moved.
and hair that, and it was because we were seeing, like, I think we'd seen some gameplay on something, so we knew it was going to have that kind of technology, and we were just blown away by it. But like one of the other things I was going to mention was the Dreamcast, and this was more like, rather than a specific game, it was the technology, where I think they were way ahead of their time, and unfortunately, the tech wasn't good enough back then, or the tech that would have been good enough was just way too expensive. But they essentially did what the Switch is doing now, in that they were trying to create something where you played your game on your console, and then you could still carry on doing something with that game when you went away. Because if you remember, the little memory packs they were like a little Game Boy.
Yeah, with a little monochrome screen and the tiny controller. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and they were trying to do something like that, and it was actually only really one or two of their first-party games that utilized it. Like, most companies just didn't really bother doing anything with it, but I would think it was Sonic Adventure that let you. Weirdly, we're bringing up another game from the
from the last episode.
But yeah, when Mark was talking about, like, the little chows where you kind of like looked after them, and you kind of like had to feed them, do all that. So you could do that with the VMU. You could put one of those chows on the VMU and then take it away, and it became like a little Tamagotchi that you would then feed and look after and do on the little memory. So I think Sega were, in terms of their ideas at that time, they were well ahead of everyone, but it was just the wrong time. The technology wasn't there yet.
Yeah, well, that and bad financial decisions and the failure of the Saturn. There was a whole bunch of reasons that went into the Dreamcast failing. But yeah, it's like, it's a pretty innovative system, and pretty genre defining. It seems Dreamcast seems to have become immortalized in the last 10 years or so. People just they love it and worship it, it seems like. And yeah, I see why, for sure. So all right, on that note, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to talk video game movies.
I'm just going to tell you what it is quickly. Quick quiz question for you.
Go ahead, bro.
It was the first game to feature a double jump in a platformer.
Oh.
Era defining. How many times do you press X and press X again, or you press A?
A 2D platformer or a 3D?
So the first video game is absolutely. I've fact checked it. You go and double down. It is a 2D platformer, and I'll tell you this for nothing. I had not heard of this.
He's not going to know it then, because he's not a 2D platformer guy.
It's a game called Dragon Buster.
Never even heard of it.
No, I hadn't heard of it. It's a Namco game from 1985, and I went and invested some time watching. I invested some time watching YouTube videos I've seen. Damn, it sucks. It's so bad.
What was it on? Was it on was it an arcade?
It was arcade. It also, I checked, it didn't even make it to the European market. So it got to North America, it played in Japan. There definitely wasn't a sequel, but it was also, the reason this is actually held up as this little kind of panacea video game is that it also was one of the very first video games to have a vitality bar. So as you kind of took hits, your health bar went down. And it's also one of the first games that had a hub world to move between different levels. There you go.
Dragon Buster.
Wow.
Dragon Buster from Namco, 1985.
Never even heard of it.
Do yourself a favor, just trust me, don't go and watch a video because it's absolute shite. So just leave that one confined to the annals of time. Just trust me.
Okay. So it was, it made some leaps forward, literally, but
it
it was
double leaps. Double leaps forward. That's exactly what it did.
You know, actually on that point, like one of my other things that I was going to raise, but like I said, I couldn't necessarily tell you what game utilized it first, but it's along those lines of like, you know, like now, yeah, well, you don't have a platformer game where you can't double jump. Like that's pretty much just the standard now. But my other thing was going to be analog sticks. Like, and I think it came in at PlayStation 1, like analogs, and I don't know what game necessarily took advantage of it first, but
was it PS1 or was it the N64 that had the analog?
Well, it had one.
One, right? But the PlayStation did the dual analog, yeah, right?
Exactly. And I mean, if I try now and go back to my N64 and play like GoldenEye, I struggle so much because it's become so standard now for you to use two analog sticks.
So in 1999, Sony's Ape Escape became the first video game in history to require the use of two analog sticks.
Ape Escape. Yeah, that game has some good music, actually.
Yeah,
if I recall. Yeah, I've never played the game, but I listened to video game, mixes on YouTube, and Ape Escape always comes up. All right, we're back, and we're going to talk video game movies, specifically the best and worst examples of game franchises turned into movies. My opinion is there are no best, but we'll see how that goes. Why don't you lead us off, Justin? What's your idea? We'll start with the best. We'll get we'll get this out of the way so we can have fun with the worst.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've nailed it. This is a real struggle. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I had to go and do some research. Then I had to do some research on some research. This is bad. There's the best. There's palatable, and then there's just the rest. So a couple I can think spring to mind. So here's a film that actually got critically panned, but actually I really, really liked. And I haven't played the video game, but I love the film. And that's Silent Hill. Now, so I love that film. So I'm a big fan of horror-based films and psychological thriller-based films and things like that. And particularly when they're done cleverly, kind of unclever, silly-based horror films. Nah, I could do without those. Silent Hill, really, really good. Really, really kind of caught me. I thought, the storyline was what it was. I thought that the whole idea of that kind of, moving into that world that's sort of, you kind of transition into it. The ash is falling everywhere. I thought it had a real kind of, moody depth to it. And as a standalone film, I quite liked it. I can hold that high. In the great all films of all time, is someone from Silent Hill going to get their palms on the walk in Hollywood? Oh my God, no. But it is at least palatable. If I was going to put another game up there as well, and I think another film, and I'm going to get two out because that's it, then I'm done. That is the best I can do.
One of them is already my favorite video game movie too, which is Silent Hill.
And I've got a bad feeling I might actually be taking the other one as well. I wanted not to like this in a way, but it was okay. And that is Rampage.
Took my other one too.
Yeah. So look, I mean, and look, maybe that says a lot about video games that got turned into films. The fact that we could pick only two and they were the same. Rampage is actually, say 80s arcade guy. That's me. Loved the original Rampage game. Had it ported onto my Commodore 64. Had it ported onto every console that I had a chance. Always been a big fan of that game. When I heard it was going to be turned into a film, 30 years later, like, what is going on here? And then you kind of start thinking, how do you turn that concept into a film? How does this actually work? Well, look, do you know what? It isn't terrible. I mean, when you've got someone like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, big star, genuinely good guy, funny, actually pretty good actor. He plays a decent part. The plot is, of course, massively far-fetched, but they've done something with it. They've gone off-piste of the original, game. They've kind of taken that as an idea, and I can deal with it. It's not that offensive. Is it top time? No.
The movie had a lot of heart, actually, I thought, with George, right? Yeah.
George,
and,
yeah.
There was a lot of heart in it, and it was funny, and it was, I mean, for an action movie, it was, very well done. It was entertaining to watch. There was plenty of stuff I felt like I'd seen before, but at the same time, there was a lot of tributes to the game, little things thrown in there, like when what's the guy that's in The Walking Dead that was in it? What's his name? I can't think of his name. He plays Negan on Walking Dead. Anyway, he was in it in a pretty prominent role, and he said he showed him a video of the wolf running around, and he's like the Looney Tunes on the internet are calling it Ralph, or whatever. Just stuff like that, was cute, I guess, But yeah, I enjoyed Rampage. Silent Hill, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember thinking, wow, this is by far the best video game movie I've seen. Just really creepy. Not saying it's high art or anything, but so very serviceable. Yeah, so you're spot on, man. Rampage and Silent Hill are, in my opinion, by far the best video game movies I've seen. I still think to this day. I didn't see Warcraft. I heard that was some people really like it, but obviously it was savaged by the critics, like many of these other game movies. So yeah, what do you think, Sorren? What you have some other ones in mind?
So yeah, I mean, from the sounds of it, I'm the only person that's kind of positive about video game movies. So, yeah, I like. So okay, firstly, totally agree with Silent Hill. I actually clubbed that as one of my choices. I kind of clubbed that in with the first Resident Evil film as well, in the sense, like, I think Silent Hill is better, but I think both of those did a really good job of trying to give you the feel of what the game is and the kind of, the lore of what the source material is. I think with the Resident Evil franchise, the later ones just kind of became action movies, and I don't mind them, but the first one had slightly more of like a horror feel to it. Or more of like a survival game kind of, feel to it. Whereas the other ones, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to fire a massive rocket launcher at everything. But no, so those two really good. I mean, Silent Hill, I take my hat off to that in that they stuck pretty close to the source material, and they managed to put Pyramid Head in there without him seeming ridiculous. Like, he legit felt like he should be there and he was a threat. Whereas, at the end of the day, you're a guy with a big metal piece of cheese on your head. Like, I don't know what. It doesn't make sense, but they managed to make that look pretty cool for live action. I was also going to mention the Warcraft movie, so I'm actually definitely somebody on the side that obviously likes it. I'm not somebody that, like, I've never really got massively into things like World of Warcraft or that, or everything around, the Warcraft universe. So I know, so from some of my friends who are more into it, like they said, they did have to kind of take a few creative liberties and kind of change some of the characters, their backgrounds and things to kind of make it fit for this film. So I think that might be where it annoyed a lot of fans and kind of, was divisive. But no, I really enjoyed that film. Like, I thought it was a fun film. It had some really good, sort of pretty good CGI and some good big epic moments. And
so was it kind of Lord of the Rings like? Was it like on that type of scale? Warcraft?
I would say kind of, but maybe a little bit more actiony.
Okay.
Like, I don't think there was as much, like.
Well,
not as
Depends
epic.
on which Lord of the Rings movie you're talking. I mean, Return of the King was like one big battle, for probably
Yeah.
half of the movie. But yeah,
Yeah, no, that's fair. No, so I would say it didn't feel as epic and grandiose as Lord of the Rings feels, but you definitely, what you've got to bear in mind with things like this is, yes, you're going to appeal to the people that obviously play World of Warcraft and love that universe, but at the same time, you do need to appeal to the casual moviegoer that is not, they're not coming into it knowing any of these characters. So you have to kind of, within like a 2-hour film, you have to like set up all your main characters. You have to get across who they are, like what kind of a person they are, and get across their personality. And very quickly, you as the viewer need to learn what would this character do and what wouldn't they do in this particular situation. And a lot of filmmakers obviously get that right and they get it perfect. I didn't think they did a bad job with this, right, at all. So, I think it's definitely up.
It seemed like it didn't appeal to people, at least in the U.S. as much. It didn't do that well at the box office. But I know in China, Warcraft was huge. Like China was a saving grace for that movie because it basically bombed here. But
yeah,
I'm guessing because wasn't China really into World of Warcraft? Wasn't that like the only game they had for? I know that China was super strict about what games and movies were allowed into the country, and consoles were banned for decades. So I think World of Warcraft there were stories of teenagers dying playing World of Warcraft in China because they played for so long that they were dehydrated and didn't eat, and
yeah.
it's like, so I can see why the movie did better over there, but that's a whole nother topic. But
No,
yeah,
that makes sense. Like, because I mean, I've always heard that PC gaming, especially, is huge over there. It makes sense that that World of Warcraft is one of their big favorite games.
right.
Since
You brought up, let me mention one thing. Since you brought up Resident Evil, I wanted to mention that because I forgot about the first Resident Evil movie. I agree. I've only seen the first two. After the second one, I was like, forget it. But the first movie was actually pretty decent. I have a little story. It's the first movie I ever saw. It came out in 2001, I think. First movie I ever saw in the theater by myself. Like up until that point, I was like, I refused to go to the movies by myself. I had to have a friend or someone with me. But for some reason, that movie won that. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go see this by myself. And I was kind of impressed. The tone was pretty good, and it was it was enough like the game to be pretty good, I think, for the most part. So yeah, that would be my third pick, I guess. Would be the original Resident Evil is a decent movie anyway.
Yeah. It's. I think with that first one, they tried to go more of a horror route rather than the action route that all the sequels have gone. So it definitely feel like if you go back and watch them now, that first one does feel like a different genre of film. So that is I think it's a good one. My other best one, I don't know what your opinions are going to be on this, and I might get some slack, but I'm going to defend it. I really like the Mortal Kombat movie.
A lot of people do. My wife loves it, and she doesn't even play video games that much.
The thing is, it's definitely a product of its time. Like, you go back and you look at it and you go, "Ooh, yeah, this is very 90s." But it's just a fun film. Like, it didn't take itself seriously. It really stuck to the lore of the Mortal Kombat universe. Like, even like little things like so I don't know how much you guys know about Mortal Kombat, but the fact that Kano he's like the bad guy that works for like the I think they're called the Black Dragons, the Black Dragon clan. He's there, and then you've got like Sonya Blade and Jax, who are like the good guys who are trying to catch him. And there was a lot of that. They had all the stuff with the Elder Gods and Raiden, and so everything from the games they put in this movie, even though it, especially at that time, by putting that stuff in the movie, people looked at it and went, "This is ridiculous." But they did it all. They put everything in there. It kind of felt very fan servicey.
Even Goro, yeah, even Goro was in there. I remember Goro. He was like a
Exactly.
big practical effect, you know, because that was
Yeah.
really before they were using a lot of CGI. So yeah, you know, yeah, that movie, you know, I watched it recently with my wife because she wanted to watch it, and I found it pretty terrible. But at the same time, I think I see why people like it. I mean, the song alone, the theme song, is freaking amazing, and just when that starts playing, man, you're like, yeah, let's go. You know, it it's one of those movies that is so bad that it's good. I look at it that way. Like it's just so
Yeah.
corny and ridiculous, but it's fun. It is fun to watch. You know, it is kind of fun to watch, and I'll give it that kind of value. But as far as it being actually a good movie, in my opinion, no, it's pretty terrible. But you know. But you're not alone, dude. There's a lot of people that love that movie and think it's great. So,
Oh yeah, and something that pays testament to that of how much the fans clearly do kind of like that film and appreciate it is Mortal Kombat 11 came out this year, and one of the one of the adverts that they did, at least for I know for England and America and those kind of places, they put that music in. So it was a gameplay trailer of the game, but they used 1990s Mortal Kombat title theme as the background music. And then even specifically in France, and I think, Nate, you might want to look this up, but I think it was only France, they got Christopher Lambert to come back and advertise it because he was Raiden in that film.
right.
So there's a French advert for Mortal Kombat 11 that has the original Raiden.
Except that he didn't do anything. But yeah, that always pissed me off that Raiden didn't actually fight. You know, he had a couple scenes where he was badass, and I remember on the boat or whatever, that scene where he goes zoom, he does his thing and hits him, and it's like, whoa, Raiden is the shit, you know. But then he didn't do anything. I remember that. I see what you're saying, man. And that music is basically synonymous with Mortal Kombat now. I would argue that is the Mortal Kombat song, you know. So yeah, that's cool. It's a good argument. I'll give you that, man. So all right, enough of this happy talk here. Let's go to all the rest, which is the worst examples of video game movies. So take it away, Justin. I'm sure we can think of plenty of examples, like maybe every movie. What's the guy's name? Uwe Boll. Every movie he's ever done, maybe for starters.
Yeah, I mean, this was just easier to look up a massive list of every game movie ever and just go, yep.
That one.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Mortal Kombat to kind of bring us in. So I kind of like Mortal Kombat, but it is on that cusp of like, oh, it's a bit crap. And if it wasn't for the theme music, which regularly goes around my Spotify, it would be dead. Then we start to kind of tip into the, Street Fighter. We're getting like another level of CAC. And for me, I'm seeing Gomez Adams as M. Bison. I don't care if you think that Raul Julia made that film, saved that.
Raul Julia was eating up the scenery and was having a great time, and he was dying of cancer all on top of it. So
yeah,
and he died right after it was released. I think right before it was released. So I think people put him on a pedestal because of that, sort of. Not that he didn't. He was the best thing about that movie. I watched it, I think, a month ago. I couldn't get through the whole movie, but for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, he's taking a hit for the team, but
yeah.
Sometimes you've got to look past that and go, okay, but now let's look at the film. Oh, dear Lord. Absolutely shocking. And that's kind of just like easing us in to like how bad some of these films are. So I'm just going to go straight for the jugular because I know which one we need to discuss. And I know this is divisive, right? I'm going to go straight for Super Mario Brothers. Absolute pony. Rubbish. Up until a certain point, Bob Hoskins was a national treasure in our country. Yeah, he was synonymous with two things in this country growing up. Right, in England, he was synonymous with two things. One, he was the awesome guy that got to be opposite Jessica Rabbit. Yep. That was number one.
Yep.
Number two,
my favorite movie.
He was the face of every BT, British Telecom advert that you would see all the time in England. When we had like 4 channels, that's all we had. Adverts round and round and round. You just see Bob Hoskins' face. It's good to talk. It's good to talk. It's good to talk. I'm like, oh, this guy's a national treasure. I love him.
Like kind of like William Shatner is now, I guess. William Shatner's doing those kind of things.
Exactly. And he's your guy. And then all of a sudden, just like that, I'm thinking, I just want to kind of make you an expat and get you out of this country because you just sold your soul to a devil called Super Mario Brothers, the movie, that, so I read, was so bad that he and John Leguizamo had to drink neat whiskey on set. They didn't even want to be there. It was that bad. And if you want something, right, just because I've done my research, check this out, right? This is the nail in the coffin. This is directly taken from several paragraphs of plot from Wikipedia, right? One line. I just want you to bear this in mind. Eventually, the Mario brothers rescue Daisy with the help of Toad, a good-natured guitarist who was punished by Koopa for performing music that protests his brain. What is this monstrosity? This is garbage. Just horrible. Just everything about this is horrible. This is classic Nintendo hype train. You know, I totally get it. Mario was absolutely at its peak, come through 1993. I get it. It makes sense to build a license, go for a film. I totally get it. It was, however, absolutely distressing. Terrible. I don't have a positive to say about it.
I can't get through it to this day. My wife likes it. She likes the older, I guess, some of the older video game movies, and we watched it a couple of years ago, and I couldn't, man. It was just like, this is I
can, you know, I can get on board with the whole films that are cult for being crap. Yeah,
it's a cult. It is a cult classic at this point, you know.
Yeah, and it's become a cult classic because it's so bad. You know, so where the criteria for the conversation is bad video game movies, boom, absolutely smashed a home run out of the park. That is, I mean, I know Sorren's going to try and put a case for the defense. So the case for the prosecution.
Nate would too, our producer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know what's coming. Yeah, go for it. Just before you do, just remember, Toad is a good-natured guitarist. Take the stand.
Okay.
For the record, it's one of the best movies ever made. I'm just saying.
So I'm definitely sitting on the side of like I know it's rubbish. I know that it is hot garbage. It's not a great film, but I do think that it's one of those ones that it goes so far down that end of the spectrum that it actually becomes kind of cult and fun and good. Like, because you watch it ironically, you watch it knowing it is rubbish. However, I can't remember where I heard this, but I heard a quote and it did make me laugh, and it did kind of sum up Super Mario Brothers, the movie. It was because I think it's Dennis Hopper is Bowser.
Yeah.
Film, and apparently his son, I think it is his son, asked him whilst he was doing the film. He said, like, "Dad, why are you doing this film?" And Dennis Hopper said, "Well, you know, I've got to find some way to get trainers for you." And his son said, "I don't need trainers that bad." Like, yeah, that's not, yeah. So
yeah,
it's
not a good movie.
Like, Nate, you maybe have some more thoughts on it, but like, I like it. I'm definitely on the side of like, I do admit it's terrible, but I would still watch it and find it funny.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, look, there's lots of cult classics. A lot of cult classics are typically bad movies to begin with, or at least, you know, bad in the terms of the way they're made, nonsensical, weird, strange movies. Why they become cult classics in the first place, you know? So I'll give Mario Brothers that status for sure. It's a cult classic and it has a following for sure. People that like it, people that hate it. Same with Mortal Kombat, you know? In fact, I think more gamers like Mortal Kombat than dislike it, it seems like. I mean, that movie seems to get a lot of love on Twitter and places these days. from what I've noticed. But I guess while I'm talking, I'm wearing a Doom shirt, and I went to see Doom in the theater back in, I think it was 2005 that movie came out. And back before Dwayne was through the stratosphere, Dwayne Johnson. And I drugged my wife to see that movie, and it was terrible. And she hasn't let me live it down to this day. She still brings it up. It's like, you drugged me to see that horrible Doom movie. And we were first dating. This was almost 15 years ago. And I think it was one of the first movies we saw together. I'm like, we have to go see Doom. I'm like, The Rock's in it, and it's Doom, so we got to see it. And the only part of the movie I remember liking was there was maybe a 5-minute sequence of first person where it goes in the first person mode and they go around like the game. And I was like, yeah, but other than that, just complete garbage, like every other.
So yeah, I totally agree. This is one of my choices as well, is for pretty much the exact same reasons that, I went into it thinking like, oh, cool, this is going to be a Doom film. Like, I really like the Doom games, and I just don't know what they did. Like, it didn't feel like they kind of really did anything that was close to the source material. They just kind of did their own thing, which was like a sci-fi action film. They dropped a couple of little references in with the, him getting the BFG, that thing and stuff like that. But you had Dwayne Johnson and Carl Urban as the two main characters in that film, and whoever directed that managed to not get good performances out of those two actors. It's like, how did you manage that? And then like you said, that scene at the end where I think Carl Urban's character, he gets like some sort of like adrenaline injection or something that he just like shot into himself, and then for no reason whatsoever it goes first person and follows him like running around shooting stuff.
Okay, that part kind of made sense because you get the injections in the game, and then you go into berserk mode, and you just go around and kill people. You go crazy. So that kind of made sense. But yeah, granted, this was earlier in Carl Urban and Dwayne Johnson's career, so we'll give him a break there, I guess. But even so,
for the record, Doom is the second best movie ever made. So just want to.
Are you being serious, dude? You like Doom also?
I actually did. Like, we don't have to go into it, but I actually,
okay.
I thought it came off as like an Aliens type movie. Had that.
Okay, that's cool.
Alien vibe.
I'll accept that.
I won't accept that. I won't accept Alien being put up there with Doom. Like,
no. To clarify, nowhere near the level of Aliens. I just felt it had that vibe. It had that sort of the special ops team goes out to kill whatever crazy, yes, it was ridiculous, but I liked it. Like when you guys are killing my spirit by like killing all these movies I love.
That's all right, man. Well, then why don't we talk about movies we can all hate, which are U-Bowl movies. Have you guys even made it through an entire U-Bowl, or is it Yui Bowl or U-Bowl?
I think it's Uwe.
Is it Uwe? Am I pronouncing it wrong? Okay. Uwe, maybe Nate can look it up. UWE, I think is how you spell his name. U-Bowl.
Yes.
He's an infamous video game movie director who is, I don't know how many he's done. It's been a boatload, and they're all just, he was able to make these movies from a tax credit or something that he was getting, I think it's a really interesting story about this guy. And he was exploiting a loophole. I don't remember what country he's from, somewhere in Europe, and he was able to get a tax credit for making these movies, tax credits. And so he kept buying the rights for game franchises super cheap, and just kept making the movies, and none of them did well, and they were all poorly received. And at one point, didn't he there was a critic that trashed one of his films, and he challenged the critic to get into the ring with him, like the boxing ring. And I think they did or something. It's just crazy, man. Just the story behind Yui Bowl, or however you pronounce his name, is really, really bonkers. But I haven't sat through one of his movies. So have either of you guys sat through one of his movies?
So I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think one of my choices for worst video game movie is one of his, because I think he did Bloodrayne.
He did Bloodrayne, yep, and multiple Bloodraynes, multiple Alone, I think he did Alone in the Dark also, and yeah, but there's a bunch of ones he did. I've never seen Bloodrayne. How bad is Bloodrayne? I'm sure it's horrible.
Oh, it's atrocious. It's like, I mean, the only kind of saving grace is that it actually is one of those films that does try and kind of stay close to the source material. Like, you know, the main character, I think, is called Rain, and she's like a vampire type, you know, like kind of like a Blade character.
Right.
You know, she looks the part. She's got the weapons she uses in the game. You know, the world definitely feels like the game, but it's just so bad. I mean, the acting is like massively hammy. It's just, like nobody's putting in a top performance, and the whole thing just has like, it clearly didn't have a huge budget, because, you know, like if you go back and watch old episodes of like Xena, Warrior Princess and stuff like that, and you can tell, like, yeah, that castle you're standing next to does actually look like it's just, you know, made from like a few planks of wood and some polystyrene.
Yeah, it's because it was all from the tax credits that he got, probably, and that's all he got.
Yeah.
You know, he had a certain small budget, and the tax credits, made it worthwhile, I guess. Yeah, Nate? What movie? You got a list of the movies up. What movies has he done?
Video game wise, it looks like he's done 2 or 3 Bloodrayne movies. He did a Far Cry movie.
Oh, okay. Didn't even know that.
And
I know Alone in the Dark is on there too. That's
Alone in the Dark. Some of these they might be video game movies, and I'm just not familiar with them. But yeah, he's done quite a few.
Did he do? Because the one of the other ones, well, my last one that I was going to mention was Dead or Alive. Did he do that one?
I don't see that under his credits.
I don't think so. He did it in The Name of the King, which was Dungeon Siege. Yeah, he did that, which was a game franchise also. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he did. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I mean, Dead or Alive was like, I mean, it's
Dead or Alive.
Dead or Alive
Did by Corey Ewan.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So it's a different person then, but yeah, that one is awful. I mean, Dead or Alive is a, you know, fighting game franchise, and they tried. I mean, I don't think it's got a lot of kind of story to it anyway. Like, I mean, forgive me for any Dead or Alive fans out there, but from the ones I've played, like it didn't feel like there was a ton of story in there. So to be fair to them, I don't think they had a lot to go on, but
those games are about jiggle physics mostly.
Yeah, and they tried to kind of put some sort of story together, but I think the thing that really hurt it was the casting. They clearly went to try and get a few names that would sell the movie, and not names that are necessarily the right person to cast for that character. So, you know, you've got people like Holly Valance, who was like, she had like a very small music career. You've got
Jamie Presley, was she in it?
Jamie Presley, who's from like My Name Is Earl and stuff like that. They've had Kevin Nash in there as one of the characters, like the wrestler Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
They clearly like tried to pick a few people where, you know, fans would look and go like, oh, that person's in that film, I'll go and check it out. Yeah, I wouldn't bother. If you've not seen it, don't waste your time. It's awful.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've exhausted our talk of video game movies, because I think, as we've all agreed, there isn't very many of them. So on that note, I think we will wrap it up. Thanks everyone for listening, watching, and on behalf of Sorren and Justin Day and Nate Rowe, our producer, we will see you next time. Welcome to GameFellas, the Retro to Modern Gaming Podcast, Episode 2. With me tonight, I have...
No, sorry. You got to do that again, bro. We talked about this.
What do we talk about? What do we talk about?
Put some pep in it, man. Welcome to GameFellas, guys. It's, you know, you're like, oh.
Dude, that's about as much pep as I got right now.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say that to you, man. So
You're killing me, Nate.
Do what you can. Do what you can.
All right. Round 2. 3, 2, 1.
At best, we have our outtake already.
I know, man. We probably do.
All right, let's